Hi everyone, it's Mrs Baly here, and today we're going to be creating a page just like this, making an abstract portrait. So it's a fairly simple process because we're going to be breaking down the face into really basic shapes, and because it looks a little bit strange and a little bit weird, it doesn't matter if it's not perfect because that's what's going to make it even more interesting. So we can have lots of fun with this. To create this today, all you'll need is, if you've got some oil pastels at home, so some pastels that will blend together, or if you have some paint and some colour pencils, some food colouring and a brush, and you'll be able to do this project. If you've got other materials at home, certainly have a go and play around, see if they work. Art, after all, is all about experimenting, so just have a go. That's what we're here for. Before we begin though, I'm going to talk a little bit about the colour wheel. So if you haven't seen it before, this is a colour wheel, and this has got 12 colours on it. Sometimes you see a more simple version with only 6. Now the most important colours on the colour wheel are yellow, red and blue. These are called our primary colours. So they're the colours that we can't really mix ourselves. They're found in nature. But if we mix these colours together, we get the secondary colours. So if we mix red and yellow, we'll get orange, which is in the middle. If we mix blue and yellow, we're going to get green. If we mix red and blue, we're going to get purple. So those are called the secondary colours. Today what we're going to be working with is we're going to be working with a primary colour and a secondary colour. So these are called the complementary colours. We're looking at colours that are opposite each other on the colour wheel. So like in this picture, I used green for the majority of my picture, but I was blending and creating my shadows using red. And you can see on this page that the red stands out. It causes a pop of colour, which is what the complementary colours do. If I chose to make my person blue, for example, my complementary colour straight across from it is orange. So having a little bit of orange to blend in is going to help pop out the colour. And if I choose purple, the colour I'm going to be using as my contrast is yellow. Now if you choose particularly purple and yellow, I would suggest you use the lighter colour for the majority of your work and use a darker colour to blend with. Because red and green are quite similar in value, you can use them either way around, but with the yellow and the purple and the orange and the blue, you may find it just a little bit easier to shade with the darker tones. But have a go and play and see what you come up with. So into our project. Put all this stuff away. So over in the corner here, I've got just a little list of what we're going to be using today and the simple steps that we're going to be following, just to remind you as we go what we're doing. So I'm starting off with an A4 sheet of paper. You can obviously make this bigger if you want, or smaller, it's up to you, but A4 is a good size to start with. I've got my oil pastels next to me. So I've got a little pack. If you've at school, I'm sure you have got these, and at home you can get them from the news agency if you haven't got some, or from shops like Shiploads if you're in Australia. But you can use anything you've got at home to do something similar. So once you've done that, you're going to the paper that I'm using is a little bit heavier than normal printer paper. I've got this out of water mixed media pad from the shop, but again, if you've only got copy paper at home, that will work. Okay, so just use what you've got at home. You don't need to go out and get anything special to do this. So for my picture, I am going to choose I'm going to choose blues, I think, to do mine today. And I'm not going to listen to my advice because I'm actually going to do the majority of mine blue and shade with my orange. So one thing that I am going to do first of all is I'm going to draw out the shapes. And my motto is there's no mistakes in art. if there is, you can always fix it up. So what I want you to challenge yourself with is to actually draw with an oil pastel, or to draw with something that's a little bit more permanent than just a pencil that you're going to be encouraged to rub out. I am using a lighter colour. I would probably actually draw, if I was doing it for myself, with an even lighter colour, but because I actually want you to see what's happening, I've just chosen a slightly darker colour. Now the reason for this is it gives me the guideline of where I'm going to go, and because I'm going to put colours over the top of it, it doesn't matter if I go over these lines or change these lines, it's just giving me a guide. So to draw my shape, the first thing I'm doing is starting off with a large oval. Okay, so that's going to be my head. Next thing I'm going to draw in is a body. So again, just 2 lines joining up to the edge of the page. The next thing I'm going to do is draw in my eyes. Now I like to draw nice big eyes, and I like to have them in odd places along the face, a bit like Picasso. So I'd encourage you, if you've got time, to have a look up on the internet or in some of your books and see if you can find some of the pictures that Picasso did. He always used to have odd shaped faces. So I'm going to draw one eye here, so it's a bit like an almond shape or a squished oval, and one eye down here. Okay, once I've done my eyes, I'm going to draw in my nose, and for my nose it's going to be long and thin, and I'm going to draw down like this, and it's going to be a really odd shape, and I'm actually drawing in the eyebrows as I go. So it's down and around and down. You can make your nose really skinny, you can make it really big, you could have it flaring out and going sort of in circles, any shape you would like. Final thing I'm going to add in are my lips. I like to have really big extended lips. You can have your lips any shape or size you want. So I'm going to have my lips go out and down like this. Okay, so that's the basic shapes you've got on the page. Really, really simple. Just going to go back and work on the eyes for a second. So I've got my almond shapes. What I'm going to do is to divide them up into 2 halves. It's kind of looking like a leaf now. Okay, and then in this center bit, I'm going to draw an upside down U, a big upside down U. And then I'm going to draw a little one again in there. Okay, and that's my eyes. And you can see already, once you put the eyes on a figure, it makes it look more realistic. So that's my basic shape for my face. Now you'll notice I've pulled out a lighter blue and a darker blue and my orange. I might actually use some of this colour too, because it's got an orangey tone to it. So the thing about layering colour is that you want to have a few colours that you can layer over the top of each other. Now, your teachers probably may say you get in trouble for doing this at school, but I like to take the cover off my crayon, and again, you would need to ask before you do this. I'm actually going to break this in half, because I'm going to use this crayon on its side to get the most amount of colour that I can really quickly. So the first thing that we are going to do once we've drawn out a shape is to put down a base coat of oil pastel. So I'm just going to use the side of my crayon, or my oil pastel, sorry. Now if you had crayons at home, this would work too. It may not blend as well as oil pastels. Oil pastels are a little bit softer and blend a little bit better, but you can have a go. Okay. Now the reason that we're doing this and covering over the entire thing is because having a layer of oil pastel makes the page a little bit smoother, and it's going to let us blend our colours better together. So we're going to go back now and add some shadows, and then we'll add some highlights. So that's what's going to make it look interesting. So I'm going to go in with my darker colour. Oh, actually I forgot to do my eyelids. And you'll see, because I have that sort of orangey colour on my page, it's starting to blend in. It's making a shade of green, and greens and blues work together really well. So So you can see by moving around my crayon too, I was able to get a thinner line by just moving it round to get a sharper edge on it. So I'm going in with my darker colour now, and now I'm going to start to actually press down quite heavily. And you can see, because I've got that oil pastel already down on the page, that's starting to blend really easily on my page. If I hadn't put that first coat down, I would have got lots of white patches, which is a good look, but it may not be the look that you're looking for. So what I'm doing is putting dark areas where the shadows on the faces are. So that's going to be around my eyes, and the inside of my nose, underneath my eyes, underneath my lips. So a good tip for this is, if you look in your face, wherever you sort of see the shadows on your face or on someone else's face, or look at a magazine image of someone and look for the darker areas on their face. Wherever the darker areas are, that's where you want your face to be darker. Okay, then I can go back in with my lighter colour and blend those together. Already you can see the difference on my page by blending these together. And the great thing about using pastels like this, or oil pastels, is that you can keep going back until you're happy with it. Now in the beginning I said that you could also use paint or paint with colour pencils. So the original painting that I showed you was actually done with paint, and to do what I did was painted out my base coat with the greens and a little bit of red, and then I went in and did some colour pencil over the top to give it some shading, which made it look really interesting. Okay, so I'm going to leave my image like this for a minute, because I'm going to start putting in another colour to make it look even more interesting. So the bottom eyelid, sorry, I'm doing the lighter colour. I put more of the darker colour in the top layer. Okay, so now I'm going to go into with my orange, but it's going to look a bit strange. But this is sort of like the highlight colour, or a different colour, to make it look again a little bit interesting. And again, you can sort of see you can get some darkness and add that in on the page. I'm going to put some down here too, like a cheek colour. Add some in around the eyes. Oops. Okay, you're going to get your oops so well moments too. That's all good. So notice a lot of the highlights come on the other side of the page. Now I'm going to go back in with my lighter colour and blend those together. Now these are supposed to look odd and silly and weird. Okay, the best thing about doing art like this is because it doesn't look like a regular person. No one can tell you that it looks wrong, because it looks exactly the way you want it to look. You are the artist. You've made it look exactly the way you've wanted it to look. And if it doesn't quite look the way you wanted it to look, that's okay too, because no one actually knows what you intended it to look like in the first place, so they won't know any different. So that's your secret little artist trick. You can keep that to yourself. I actually like having their eyebrows go out onto the page just for something different. Oops. I'm going to go back in because I really like this dark colour. Put some more around. So you can actually see how heavily you can put this on to mix it all together. Okay. With my weird and wonderful little little creature, and it doesn't take all that long to do. Okay, you can take as long with this as you want. Okay, so that's what I've got so far. You may find if you're using oil pastel that you've got some on your page, so you can just tap it off. But if you've blended it in enough, it's not going to be an issue. So the next thing I'm going to do, oh, I didn't actually use this colour. I might use this colour for his eyes actually. So with the eyes, actually this is really important. So the first loop, or the rainbow, you're going to colour in the colour of your eyes. So I'm choosing to do it this sort of yellowy colour. I'm actually going to put a little bit of orange in there as well, just for a little bit of highlight. Okay, now this is the magic bit. This is when your painting will start to come alive, because at the moment it sort of kind of looks unfinished. As soon as you put the black in for the iris, your eyes will come alive. The important thing to do, and I am going to use a pencil just so you can see this, is you need to leave a little bit of white in the eye. That's called the catch-all. That's what makes eyes look realistic. So I'm going to try and leave a little circle of white in the corner. Now it's really important, wherever you put the circle on one side of the eye, you put it on the same side. If I put them in two separate places, the eyes wouldn't look like they're looking in the same direction. So it's really, really important for eyes to look realistic that you have the catch-alls and you put them in the same place in the eyes. I'm going to go in with my black now, being really, really careful to avoid covering over all of it. Okay, same on this side. So you can see here it doesn't really matter that you've got that line of colour in the middle. There you go. And already they look amazing. So the other thing with the black is you can then go in and darken up some features around. So I want to make my eyes look really dramatic. Okay. And I'm going to darken them up a little bit. Okay. You see now why some people like to wear makeup, because as soon as you put a little bit of black on, it makes your eyes stand out. Now I'm not actually tracing around my whole shape. Okay, I'm not putting a line around everything. I'm just going in and darkening up some of my areas. Just to make them stand out a little bit. Okay. The final thing that I'm going to do is my lips. And for that, you can't go past red lips really. So you can see I didn't put a base coat down here, and you can see I'm having to press a little bit harder, and it's taking a little bit more effort to cover this than it did when I first put that base coat on. Okay, now just to put again a little bit more shading around my lips, I'm actually going to go back with that blue. So if we go back to our colour theory, we mix blue with red, we're going to get some purples. So I'm going to get some really lovely colours just by mixing those in. I'm also going to mix in a little bit of white. So change the bottom lip to a little bit more pink toned, because our bottom lips stick out from our face a little bit more than the top. Therefore, they're going to get a little bit more light on them. The top lip sort of has a little bit more, is a little bit darker. If you look in the mirror, your top lip will be a little bit darker than your bottom lip. Okay, if your oil pastel gets dirty like this, if you've got some scrap paper, you can just clean it off so you can keep it nice and white. It's a good idea, particularly with your whites, that if you can keep them white, that's a good idea. Okay, where's my black? I'm just gonna quickly go around. You can see with the black, I'm trying to turn it round and keep that black edge as much as possible. Now in your eyes, you do need to go back in if you've done what I've done and painted over it a little bit. You do want to have this white. If you have got in your house some Tipp-Ex or correction pen, you could actually use that to colour this little bit in, because you want the whites of the eyes to be white. Now when I've taught this in classes before, some people got a little bit carried away and coloured in the whole eye in another colour. Eyes do have a little bit of white in them, so it's important that you can keep that white as much as possible. Right, so now I've got my finished face. All I need to do is my body, and your body can be really simple. You can choose any colour you want. I would suggest you use your contrast colour, so I'm going to use my orange because that's going to make my face stand out a lot. Okay. If you want to, I'm actually going to scribble a little bit of this on, because again, I can just use the straight colour, but by mixing colours is where we get some interesting effects. So that's why I haven't suggested you use texture to do this job, because with textures, while they're really great for some activities, they're a little bit harder to mix because they're the way you layer them down is slightly different. So we can do some cool things with textures. We're going to be doing some cool things with textures, but for the moment we're going to concentrate on our lovely oil pastels. Oops. So you can see here, because I didn't take as much time to lay down my colour, I'm struggling a little bit. I'm going to go back to my lighter colour, and you can see now, because I've got a really good base coat, I can blend those colours together. I can get rid of all those white little bits. Now it is important for this that you do want all the little white bits covered up, because we're going to do a dye wash over the top of this, and if I don't have all those little bits covered up, I'm going to have little bits of dye in it, which could give you a really cool effect. So it is up to you, but just know that if you've got little white bits in here, your dye is going to go into it. Okay, so there's my finished little crazy abstract portrait. So now I'm going to go in with my dye, and we're going to use some food colouring, and I'm going to use green. So we're going to do a bit of colour theory. Hopefully you remember what two colours make green. So I'm going to put in lots of yellow, because I've lost my green food colouring. I'm only going to put in a tiny little drop of blue. And I'm going to mix that around. Ooh. Ooh. Right. Now I've got some water in there anyway. This is going to give me a really light wash. You can make your ink or your food colouring stronger if you would like, but it doesn't have to be. Okay. And I'm just painting around my portrait. So I've chosen green because if we go back to our colour wheel, which I'll grab in a second, green and blue sit together on the colour wheel. So they're called cool colours or analogous colours because they sit together on the colour wheel. So they don't fight against each other like the blue and the orange. The blue and the orange want to stand out from each other because they're opposites, and they go, we are different, we want to stay different. The green and the blue, however, are friends, they're neighbours on the colour wheel, so they don't mind hanging out together. So if you're looking for a background colour that's not going to fight against your piece, you can use your greens. So that's the finished piece. If you want to get really, really clever, you could write some things in your picture as well. In my original picture, I wrote a quote about being individual. So I'm going to write a quote on this one. I'm going to use my oil pastel. It's a good way to practice your handwriting. So I'm going to write this. So my favourite way to write quotes or to write on artwork is to draw some wiggly lines. And I'm going to write a quote, a very famous quote about creativity. So it's, you can't use up You can't use up creativity. I'm actually going to cheat and show you this. When I go to write something out on my artwork, I always write it out on a piece of paper first. The reason for that is I want to make sure that I'm spelling it correctly and I've got all the words I need to have on it. So it's really, really important. Get mum and dad to check the spelling for you as well beforehand. It just means you're not going to make a mistake on the end. It would be really sad to do this beautiful picture and then do something down here that you think, oh, I wish I hadn't done it. You'll notice when I'm writing, I'm using the line width to write my letters. I'm just writing in block letters, and it just adds to the texture of the background. It gives some interest. So the rest of the quote is, the more you use the more you have. Okay. So that's the end of our picture. So I hope you enjoyed this little technique and have a go at making your own little abstract person. I'm just going to blot off my extra water. If you find the background's too pale as well, you can always do another coat of it once it's dry. Okay, and leave that to dry, and then you can display it somewhere beautiful in your house. Thank you so much for joining in with the first lesson with Mrs Baly. Please come back and check out the YouTube channel to find lots of other cool techniques and programs that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. Until then, be happy, be creative, and create beautiful works of art. Bye for now.